Talktainmentradio.com.
We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard. Oh my goodness, this is indeed a break of the week. This is what we call hump day. At least that's what's often referred to as hump day. And but we are here with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and he is the author of what is considered definitive and classic works as it relates to the question of what is racism, how it impacts our lives, and a whole bunch of other things that are very, very relevant, that are day in and day out. And I think what's most appealing about many of the things that Mr. Fuller, or the concepts that are developed, is the day-to-day. It's the daily things that matter. During the 60s, we had the notion of Pan-Africanism. We had the notion of black nationalism. We had a whole lot of notions. Problem was, it didn't define for us what we do on a day-to-day basis. And that day-to-day basis was so powerful in terms of how it impacted people until people went with the thing that impacted them within the first 24 hours, the first 5 hours, the first 2 hours, and eventually the day-to-day won the day, in a way of speaking. And then the concepts faded away because they had no implementation on a day-to-day basis. But I believe that from reading the code is designed to be a day-to-day implementation system. Am I correct about that, Mr. Neely Fuller?
Yes, sir.
Now, that day-to-day implementation is fascinating because that looks at things from a whole different level as we look at a day-to-day implementation of a lifestyle. And it seems, Mr. Fuller, that those things that have day-to-day implementation have the strongest staying power, and they tend to grow in the institutions and ways of life. Would you say that is correct, Mr. Fuller?
That's correct.
Now, where does that lead us when we talk about a code? Why is it important for us to have a code?
It's important to have a code because it gives a person focus on what a person should or should not be doing from minute to minute, each and every day. Everybody on the planet is doing something. Every minute that a person is breathing, if a person is sleeping, that person is doing something. And that something is going to fall into one of two categories. There's no such thing as in between. It's either going to be constructive or non-constructive. Even if one person is sleeping, that sleep is going to be constructive or non-constructive. If the person is sleeping unnecessarily, then that's in the non-constructive category, meaning the person is oversleeping, meaning they're getting more sleep than they need. If the person is getting inadequate sleep, and then they have to get up and be about doing something, flying an airplane or driving to work or operating some type of machinery and whatnot, and the person has not had adequate sleep, and that includes a teacher that has been grading papers and whatnot, and then the next day they're in the classroom, they're going to meetings, they're going here and going there, and bells are ringing and whatnot, and that teacher did not get adequate sleep. And here you have 40 students in a class, many of them unruly, and the teacher hasn't had adequate sleep. The teacher's nerves are frayed, so that has an effect on the performance performance of the teacher and the outcome of the future of those 40 students. So just a little thing like getting adequate sleep has to be taken into consideration, because inadequate sleep falls into the non-constructive category. And then it has all kind of ramifications. And we could just go on and on and on. Everything that a person does every day, all day, should be structured, be codified, to be constructive. Anytime a person, and most of us have cell phones, anytime a person just picks up their cell phone and say, I think I'll dial Marcia, I think I'll dial Kia, I think I'll dial Henry, that person should stop and think, is this call going to be constructive or non-constructive? Am I calling someone to curse them out? Am I calling someone to do anything that's constructive? Because if that call is not constructive, then it should not be made. Period. Even if you walk around all day in complete silence, and that will help a lot of black people, sometimes just to be able to walk around all day in complete silence so that maybe a message can get through to them in the way of constructive thinking. Because messages do come to your mind, and those messages are going to be either constructive or non-constructive. So we need a code that always says we should be in a constructive mode in all areas of activity, all the time. And that doesn't rule out fun, because one of the areas of activity is entertainment. So you have 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And these 9 areas of activity are segmented in the basic book that I put out as my little contribution, you might say, quote unquote, hopefully to be used in a constructive manner, so that a person can kind of stay focused all day long. Should I call a person? Should I go to this place? Should I go to that place? I'm on the bus. I'm riding somewhere. Where am I going? And what am I going to do when I get there? And when I do whatever I do when I get where I'm going, is it going to be constructive or non-constructive? It's going to be one or the other. There's no such thing as in between.
Wow. Mr. Fuller, we've got so many issues in the non-white world. I'm just going to try to just get to some of them, but there are a bunch of things. I'm Brother Kahari, by the way. There are a bunch of things that we can talk about. Before we get to that, Mr. Fuller, you have a new address as to how we get your 2 definitive works. Can you give that to us, would you please?
Yes, very simple. ProduceJustice.com.
Oh, yes, that is. That is great. So it's ProduceJustice.com. Now, in our last program we did, we talked about the L.A. Situation with the L.A. police officer. Now we're going to shift a little bit. There is a lot of stuff going on underreported in the African American world. For example, Detroit is $14 billion in the hole. The city of Detroit, and that's not hard to see. They now have 30 days before they'll be bailed out of bankruptcy. Mr. Fuller, we haven't looked into cities that much, but you have some very interesting concepts on what happens to cities when they go from white to black, and black folk get in there. And then when those people who may be white supremacists bankrupt the city, lower the value of the city, then move right back in. It's almost like he used to say, they're constantly moving black folk so they can't get settled in their thinking, so they keep their environment always unsettled, always in a dramatic, chaotic situation. Can you go through that a little bit for me, Mr. Fuller?
Well, wherever, under the system of white supremacy, wherever white people are in the system of white supremacy, everything is always, for the most part, improved as far as physical facilities are concerned, material things. There's always an improvement where the white people of the planet are, for the most part, unless other white people, the white supremacists, have deemed that some white people need to be written off, need to be sacrificed. And then you have dysfunction among those white people who are being sacrificed. But the smartest and most powerful people on the planet are, unfortunately, those white people who believe in white supremacy. As a whole, they are the smartest and most powerful people because in order to be a white supremacist, you have to be smart. That doesn't say that you're wise. That doesn't say that you're good. But you have to be smart enough to do what you want to do with the non-white people on the planet, and the non-white people are running around trying to figure out what to do about it. And that is evident that we do have a system of white supremacy in place. If the victims of white supremacy were smarter than the white supremacists, then logically speaking, the victims of white supremacy would not be victims of white supremacy if they were smarter. The smartest people always conquer and dominate the people who are not smart.
Now,
And
Mr. Fuller, whoa, that's controversial. Would you repeat that again, Mr. Fuller?
The smartest people in any situation, if it's 10 people in a room, and you have one person that knows much more than all the other people in the room, particularly when I say much more, I mean about dominating, about being a dominant force. That one person will dominate those 9 people. That's just a mathematical fact. And usually that one person knows a lot of things. Just can't know 1 or 2 things and dominate 9 people. You have to know a lot of things. First thing you have to know is how to dominate all 9 of those people. And all 9 of those people consistently, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, don't know what to do about it. They always have to come to that one person for everything. If you leave those 9 people alone, they don't know what to do, except maybe turn on each other and squabble and argue, or spend their time just showing off and primping to each other until the 10th person, who is really number 1, walks in and says, okay, now children, time for the foolishness to stop. Let's get down to business. Big Dad is here. And that is essentially the function of the people on the planet who are classified, and the white supremacists did the classifying as white and non-white. You first of all have to be white, then you have to become eligible to be a white supremacist. And that's a process, meaning you have to know a lot of things. You have to know a lot about the weather. You have to know a lot about how to grow crops. You have to know about how to move about on the high seas. You can't be dumb and do this. You can't be ignorant. You can't be stupid. You can't be primitive. You have to be smart in order to move about on the high seas, know what the weather is going to be well in advance, and then go places and do things that the people that you are going to visit in the faraway lands cannot fathom what you're doing and how you're doing it. They just stand there and look at you in awe. And then you proceed, if you're a white supremacist and you're dealing with non-white people, you start telling the non-white people what to do, what to value, what's important, what's not important, when to have fun, how to have fun, when to be constructive, when to be non-constructive. And getting back to the format of the 10 people in the room, anybody can run it on a test. And anybody who's ever been to a classroom, to a school. Say if I go to a school where the teacher is a brain surgeon, and there are 9 people in the room, including myself, and we know nothing about brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the dominant person in the room? The person who is teaching brain surgery. This is not rocket science. This is just a mathematical and a logical and a codified fact. When you're sitting in a classroom, you're admitting that you're dumb, that you're ignorant. You might say that's the better word, that you're ignorant. Ignorant of what? Ignorant of the things that you didn't know when you came to the classroom to find out. It's nothing incorrect about being ignorant, except we're all ignorant in some things. Everybody on the planet, including a brain surgeon, may not be able to fly an airplane. So we're all ignorant about a lot of things. But the more things that each individual knows, the better that individual can function. But a lot of non-white people have been taught by the white supremacists, be ignorant, act ignorant, be stupid. In fact, stupidity is worse than ignorance.
And it's glorified.
Yes, you glorify stupidity. In other words, not only are the victims of racism taught not to learn anything of constructive value, but to glorify being ignorant and to glorify acting stupid. Now, the difference between ignorance and stupidity is ignorance is that you don't know. So we all don't know a lot of things that we need to know, everybody on the planet.
Right.
All right? But stupidity is when you know better, but then you decide you're not going to do what you know. Anything that's constructive, you'd just rather do something stupid than to do something constructive. That's a preference. And black people are taught to worship stupidity on a systematic basis. And you can see the manifestation of it all over the Northwestern Hemisphere and in many other areas of the world.
And that's what I want you to break down. When you say black people are taught to worship, what did you say, stupidity?
Stupidity.
Break that down a little bit more for me.
Well, anything that's constructive, we want to back away from it. If someone is trying to teach us something that may have constructive value, we'll look at it and see, is there any stupidity in this? Is there anything that really, that if I do it, will I wind up in big trouble and whatnot? Because I want to do something that's really, troublesome, something that'll breed trouble. I want to walk into a crowd of people, and just start doing something that makes no sense at all. That's what I want to do. Now, if you try to teach me anything else, I don't want to hear it because it's boring. That's the key right there. It's not exciting. It won't give me a rush. I want everything that will give me a temporary high, no matter how crazy it is. Jump off a cliff or whatever. Get on drugs. We all know by now, drugs are devastating. We should know by now, and many of us don't, that having someone draw pictures on us. We have excellent skin. Anything you put on that skin in the form of graffiti is going to look ugly. There's no such thing as a beautiful tattoo on a black person. No way. That's impossible.
That's true.
But we are all just butchered up with this stuff. Someone just comes and say, hey, come and give me all the money in your pocket, and I'm going to draw a picture on you. And they smile. And we think that that's constructive because we haven't stopped to think about it and say, wait a minute. You should be paying me to draw a picture on me. I'm not a billboard. I'm me. My skin is perfect as the Creator made it. Don't draw anything on me, or me and you are going to fall out. We're going to have a real fight.
But, Mr. Fuller, they will tell you that this is designed in a respectful manner, or it helps to communicate how they feel, or they put their mother, they put their father, they put their children, they put even somebody they're going to marry. And oftentimes they don't marry them, but they're stuck with it. But that's what they would tell you, Mr. Fuller.
That's what people will say, but when you think about it logically, who cares that matters? Because anybody that values you in the first place will value you in the last place. So drawing pictures on yourself is not going to help you. That's not going to help you get anything except a rejection for a job, maybe, because you're all just charted up. Big Bill, Dap Daddy, and all like this on your forehead and all on your shoulders and whatnot. Death's heads and all type of daggers and whatnot. And I love Jean, but you're walking with Lucy. What kind of nonsense is this? This is what you have paper for. This is what you have all kinds of material that you can print on and whatnot. A lot of people do and put graffiti in the underpass. Underpass is usually where you see it. You're not an underpass, or you shouldn't think of yourself as being one. And it looks ugly under the underpass, even when you try to hide it. It's better just to paint, just paint the wall. You don't want all of that, just every little of everything, just scramble all over the place. But we devalue ourselves. We think that we are improving our appearance. Your appearance was improved when you were created, just the way it is. Fingernails, fingers, forehead, your eyebrows, yes. And the hair, you don't need to keep extending that hair, going around just buying wheat and whatever else you can attach to your hair. Ad infinitum.
Wow. Stay right there. We're just getting started with Mr. Fuller. This is the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm Brother Kahari. Stay right there.
Hi, I'm Joe Theismann. No matter what stadium I broadcast from, I'd always have to find the closest bathroom, just in case I had that sudden urge to go. My prostate was giving me fits. But then I heard about Super Beta Prostate's nationwide 1,000,000-bottle giveaway, and I got a free bottle. What a difference it made. I don't have to go as often, and I don't have to get up at night as much. Now I wake up refreshed and ready to tackle anything. What's so special about Super Beta Prostate is that it's the most widely used supplement supporting a healthy prostate. Super Beta Prostate has sold over 5 million bottles, and it also has a trusted 10-year history, and it's all natural. There's no reason to accept the issues that come with an aging prostate. So get Super Beta Prostate today.
Call right now and you'll learn how to get a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. Pay only shipping and handling. Call 1-800-487-1634. That's 1-800-487-1634. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call 1-800-487-1634. That's 1-800-487-1634.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names. Really? Yeah. They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-371-5898, 800-371-5898.
More people are dealing with depression, stress, and anxiety than ever before. Finances increase stress in stable relationships. Sometimes it's hard to go to work. Need a fresh start? Call 614-833-2684. Contact Noreen Palmer at Affirmative Counseling Associates for an appointment today. Call 614-833-2684. Or check out my profile at psychologytoday.com/Noreen Palmer. Knock out depression and stress starting today. Call 614-833-2684.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is a must-read. Call area code 202-484-5461, 202-484-5461. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller. Get the book now!
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a range of pep talkers standing by. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org and find free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
I'm Tammy Rager, host of The Now Age and numerologist to the stars. I've got your lucky numbers on Conversate the AM on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:11 a.m. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in with Mr. Fuller every week at this time. We catch us live at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. It's 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, by the way. Eastern Standard Time as it relates to America, or the United States of America. We realize that we can be heard in Spain. We can be heard in Morocco. We can be heard in Lagos. We can be heard in Accra, Ghana. We can be heard in the Congo. We can be heard on Paris, all over the place. We can be heard. We can be heard in Greece. So this is a worldwide broadcast, not just limited to this area of the world known as the United States, but for those in the United States, we say Eastern Standard Time because that's the time that we use over here. But across the world, someone may be listening to us at night. But this is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in each week with Mr. Fuller. And Mr. Fuller has two powerful, definitive works on the question of racism. And racism is just not a local phenomenon. Mr. Fuller describes it as global. And he was probably one of the first persons that I've seen call it a global system. In fact, he was the first I've seen call it a global system all around the world, that it operates. Now, other people have talked about its existence around the world, but no one identified it as a global system. And when you think about a system, it changes the whole way in which you view it. You don't see it anymore as random acts or Bull Connor or someone down in South Africa just being mean-spirited and killing up people under apartheid. No, what Mr. Fuller has defined this is as a global system. Mr. Fuller, you have two works. Could you tell us those names of the works and how we can get them?
You can get them by punching into your computer the words producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on your screen is a brief description and how to order the book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, those words don't mean anything except they are described in the book, like all words should have definitions. All words should have definitions that describe what the words mean. Words are tools. And subtitle for the book that's more explanatory is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for people who are victims of racism. That's the victims of racism. And racism is described as white supremacy. There's no other form of racism, nowhere. It's just white supremacy. And that's a system that covers what everybody does on the planet, all of the non-white people who are dominated under the system of racism in all 9 areas of activity, 24/7. And those 9 areas are economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And the white people who have decided to become white supremacists, because that's a science, that's something that you become. You're not a white supremacist just because you're white. You're a white supremacist because you chose to participate in dominating and mistreating people based on color. Meaning that as a white supremacist, you have decided that you're going to be with that large and very smart and very powerful group of people who say, when you look at a person and see that that person's skin has color, black, brown, red, yellow, beige, tan, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's not white, then that person that you're looking at is eligible to be mistreated. That's the whole philosophy of racism. Mistreated in order to do what? For fun, for glory, and for material maintenance. I don't say material gain anymore because the white supremacists have already got all the materials that they need, and even more than they need. They're taking it from everybody else, all of the non-white people. So they have that. But they dominate all of the non-white people on the planet, even non-white people who say that they have their own country or their own flag. They don't have anything. The white supremacists are running all their business. They just don't know it. Most of them don't know it, but a few of them who just looked around them and find out who do they take their orders from, either directly or indirectly, who has the muscle, as they say in organized crime, and racism is organized crime, by the way, the biggest organized criminal system that the world has ever seen. So any non-white person who says, well, I have my own country, I have my own flag, you better wake up and smell the coffee. You don't have anything. Because the first thing you don't have is yourself. Because you're under the domination, either directly or indirectly, of the white supremacists. And they can prove it to you in about 15 minutes. They can send a plane right over you and blow everybody in your village away. So stop going around bragging about you being the lord of this and you being the overseer of this and having the females in the tribe or in the area where you are or in what you call your country bowing down to you and saying that you know this and you know that. You don't know anything compared to what the white supremacists already know about you and your tribe and your people, and you know nothing about them. And they dominate your commerce. If you go out on that ocean, you better get permission from them. Wow. If you go into the air, you better get permission from them. If you go under the seas and try to sneak your way this place and that way, you better get permission from them. That's what white supremacy means, in case you don't understand it.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, one of the things that plagues our condition or situation as black people is drugs, illegal drugs, from Oxycontin, well, legal and so-called legal and illegal, Oxycontin all the way to heroin. We've noticed that particularly many of the females in our community wake up on marijuana, go to lunch on marijuana, go to dinner on marijuana, and go to bed on marijuana. They're marijuana'd up. I mean, 24/7. Then you throw in all of these other confusing things from hip-hop to Afrocentrism, and you get a strange mix. And that mix is what we're seeing walking the streets these days. And I'm not so sure how to read this. Maybe you can help me understand what's going on out there, because you see it and I see it. Anytime we walk the street, go anywhere, we see this look. We see this dress. We see this style. But yet, their days, if you monitor their whole day, it's totally non-productive. What's going on here, Mr. Fuller?
Well, the usual suspects, the white supremacists. The white supremacists have to come up with ways of having people, their subjects, tame at all times, just like you tame animals, or you train animals to be tame when you're around, and to go crazy when you're not around, and turn on each other, like dog fights. And that's what black people do in all the cities. You can see that. I mean, trying to run up the murder rate. Black people wake up in the morning and stick, young black males put their 9mm, down in their sock and around their waistband, and have one down in their cargo pants. Might have 3 guns, okay? And they feel powerful enough to do what? To make trouble for themselves, and certainly to make havoc with other people that look exactly like them. All of the boys that they went to school with and all like that, hunting each other down. This is their full-time job. In order to do what? Shoot at each other. Why? Because somebody put that in a video game and it looked cool. Not stopping to think, now, is this the most constructive activity I can contribute to my 17 years of existence on this planet, my 34 years of existence on this planet? Is this all I can think about? Is there anything else anywhere on the planet or in the universe that I can think about that would make some kind of sense other than doing this, and then the females going around finger popping and chewing gum and looking wide-eyed and bumping into things, and then, well, hey, this is life, and this is what I choose to do, and this is the greatest thing that ever was or ever will be, is being a member of the Bad Girls Club. So, what is this all about? It's all according to the white supremacist plan. That's what it's all about. And it's supposed to be what? Falling under the category of what? Non-constructive activity. And then the white supremacists, who are not engaged in overall in constructive activity, because everything they do is just about dominating and mistreating people based on color. That's their whole reason for breathing. And figuring out newer and better ways. Yes.
Right.
In other words, if black people look like they're getting to the place they don't much like cocaine, we'll come up with something else. We got about 15 dozen other items that we can feed them, and they're always looking for something new because they're bored out of their skulls.
And guess what they're getting ready? And guess what they're getting ready to do, Mr. Fuller?
Right,
in Charleston, West Virginia, a bill proposed in the West Virginia House of Delegates. Now, you know, once it gets proposed somewhere, it's picked up everywhere across the country. Yes. A bill proposed in the West Virginia House of Delegates would require, listen to this, 3 separate drug tests before teenagers could get a driver's license. It is said it is the latest in a string of proposals to expand government-mandated drug testing in the state. The bill introduced Tuesday would require potential drivers, didn't say older too, to pass a drug test before they receive a learner's permit, intermediate license, and a full license. That means that what's getting ready to happen, Mr. Fuller, is that when you go to get your driver's license now, and let's say you wake up in the morning to it and go to bed at night to marijuana, all of a sudden they're going to drug test you before you can get your driver's license. And they've got new ways that people don't even know about to test you. It's not the old ways they're going to test you. It's these new ways, and these new ways are fairly quick. And if you've got drugs in your system at any point, so-called illegal drugs, you will not be allowed to drive your car. I mean, these things, and I see all kind of drug testing things are popping up all over the place. Mr. Fuller, let me get your response to some of this.
Well, I'll go by what the code says, and that is, under the system of white supremacy, you can expect these things. These things are to be expected. Now, you can expect when they start out, to the extent that the white supremacist has anything to do with it. See, I can't say, according to the code, I cannot say that the Virginia or the North Carolina legislature and the people who are doing this by name, I can't name the people who are doing this and call them racist. I will say that if it has anything to do with non-white people that is detrimental, then whomever the racists are, even if they're on the moon, they are to blame if it is somehow detrimental. If it's somehow non-constructive, you always blame the white supremacists for anything that happens in the system of white supremacy that shouldn't happen. So if people are being drugged up like this, the black people don't know anything about drugs. We've said that like for ages. You know, cocaine and all like that, we didn't know anything about that. We didn't know how to use it in a detrimental way on a grand scale like the white supremacists have done.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have come up with new types of drugs, and they probably have hundreds of types and hundreds of different variations of detrimental drugs, which are just chemicals, by the way, they can mix and match them and whatnot in a laboratory and whatnot and say, let's go try this on the black people. Okay, well, let's try drug A, and then we'll try drug Q 5 years down the road. Now, when we try them out, we'll get them hooked on it, then we will condemn them for being hooked on it, and then we'll tell them that they are unfit, antisocial, and therefore disqualified for the job, and then we'll go to the next stage saying that, you know what, since you're so drugged up, and your children are so drugged up, and everybody you know is so drugged up, you all come in next Thursday. And I'm not going to punish you because, after all, you are sick. But since you are a bunch of sick people, and you're kind of worthless, really, because you're unreliable on account of these drugs that you have chosen to take, thinking that will solve all your problems, and it just made a whole lot more problems. But you all come in, and I'll have mercy on you, and I'll just see to it that you don't have any offspring. So that'll be the next drug I'll give you. Come in, and all you dark-skinned people come in here and get sterilized, because you're not going to do anything but produce a whole bunch of worthless children. And that's already been proven. You yourself say that your children are worthless. You even express how much they're worthless by, if I turn my back as your master for 5 minutes, you start killing each other. That's all you know what to do with each other. You don't know how to do anything with each other but kill each other and call each other names all day. You're constantly searching for newer and better names to call each other. You want to fight on the buses. You want to fight on the streets. So I'm just going to sterilize a bunch of you.
Wow.
And I'll be doing you a favor.
Stay right there, Mr. Fuller. More to come with Mr. Neely Fuller on the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Joe Theismann. No matter what stadium I broadcast from, I'd always have to find the closest bathroom, just in case I had that sudden urge to go. My prostate was giving me fits, but then I heard about Super Beta Prostate's nationwide 1,000,000-bottle giveaway, and I got a free bottle. What a difference it made. I don't have to go as often, and I don't have to get up at night as much. Now I wake up refreshed and ready to tackle anything. What's so special about Super Beta Prostate is that it's the most widely used supplement supporting a healthy prostate. Super Beta Prostate has sold over 5 million bottles, and it also has a trusted 10-year history, and it's all natural. There's no reason to accept the issues that come with an aging prostate. So get Super Beta Prostate today.
Call right now and you'll learn how to get a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. Pay only shipping and handling. Call 1-800-487-1634. That's 1-800-487-1634. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call 1-800-487-1634. That's 1-800-487-1634.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is now more listener friendly. We've categorized the programs that air on Talktainment Radio.
Wednesday, news, politics, and sports.
Rebranding America. The Resilience Project. Justice Matters.
Go to TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on programs for times and podcasts. Click Listen Live for current programs being aired. We are the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard.
The women we love, the women who love us, they are dying. Heart disease is our #1 killer, taking more lives than all forms of cancer combined. But we have the power to save those lives, our lives, because the greatest force for women is women. It's time to stand together, to fight harder, to shout louder. It's time to go red for women.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is a must-read. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller. Get the book now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a range of pep talkers standing by. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org and find free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
I'm Tammy Rager, host of The Now Age and numerologist to the stars. I've got your lucky numbers on Conversate the AM on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:11 a.m. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard, the world's greatest radio. I'm Brother Kari, sitting in every Wednesday, 10 a.m., live, Eastern Standard Time in the United States, but you can hear us all over the world right now live, or you can go to TalkTainmentRadio.com, where you can hear podcasts, or what is called podcasts. That means that you can just go to the website, TalkTainmentRadio.com, look for programs, and then punch up Compensatory Concept, and there you are, podcasts, or what is called rebroadcast of what has already been done. This whole notion of pods, it comes from this idea. Well, anyway, that's not something I want to get into right now. But joining us, of course, every week at this time is Mr. Neely Fuller. He's the author of 2 definitive and classic works on racism, and now you can get them at producejustice.com. Am I correct, Mr. Fuller?
That's correct.
Producejustice.com, and you go on there and then you follow what's on that website, and it tells you how to get these 2 definitive works that I think have set the standard for all the works that should come after what Mr. Fuller has done. And there are a lot of people who have been influenced by the works of Mr. Fuller, including myself and others, and so we talk about this all the time. All right, Mr. Fuller, when we talk about, all of a sudden there's this notion now, they're going to drug test to see if you can get welfare. They're going to drug test to see if you get jobs. Now they're going to drug test to see if you can get a driver's license. And at the same time, while doing all this, they're flooding African-American communities with drugs. I mean, tons of it, just incredible amounts of drugs. It is so bad, and some have even said it's laced all up in the music, the rhythm of the music, the beat of the music, the sound of the instruments. Also is drug-laden or laced with it, embedded in the sound of it, that it creates and triggers this notion of getting high. And we know for a fact, studies are now showing that black people and black women, even black women more so than black men, even though black men are just as high, they wake up in the morning with marijuana, go to bed at night with marijuana, have marijuana for lunch, for dinner. They're marijuana'd up from the time that they get up to the time that they go to bed. Now here comes reality. Many of them don't work, but now you're about to lose the ability to find a job. Mr. Fuller, this is devastating information when you look at how deep drugs flow, illegal drugs, as well as illegal prescription drugs flow inside of our community. How do we address this drug situation, Mr. Fuller?
Well, just by knowing who's behind it and why. And then just don't do it if you can possibly get away from it. But the white supremacists, they have decided that in the refinement stage of white supremacy that more and more dark-skinned people throughout the world are beginning to become, after many, many, many millenniums, you might say, in a way of speaking, of just being kind of lethargic and out of it, you might say, and primitive, pitiful people, just world beggars, really. And some black people, some dark-skinned people, some people who are classified as non-white throughout the world started in the 1960s to kind of stir and say, enough already. Maybe we should become a different people. Maybe we should not be so primitive. Maybe we should be problem solvers, because we usually know how to make a lot of problems. We don't know how to solve the problems that we make or solve the problems that other people make for us. So in the 1960s, people began to stir all over the world, non-white people, and began to use their brains rather than just use emotion to try to solve problems. Because black people, particularly, have been taught, well, use your emotions. If you run into a problem, just start screaming and yelling. I mean, and hope that it will all work out. If you lose your way going down the highway, just close your eyes and step on the gas and hope that it all works out. And but don't use your brain. That's for the white supremacists to do. You've been given a brain, but just forget about the brain. Be body people. Don't be brain people. Be body people. Keep your body moving, even if you don't know where you're going. Just run around bumping into things. And if you bump into some black people while you're moving around, then lash out at them on account of they bumped into you and you bumped into them. And just keep doing that, because that's a part of my plan for you forever, because then I can always control you. But then the dark-skinned people start waking up, and they start saying, we got to come up with a sophisticated way to have them participate in going back to sleep. And so we will use chemicals to do that. We no longer want to just run them down, and beat them with clubs and shoot them with guns. That wakes them up. That keeps them alert. That makes them want to do something constructive. That makes their brain works at a certain level. So we don't want their brains to work at all. So what's the best way to do that? Make chemicals appealing. Give it some fancy name. Call it Harlem Sonata, and put it in a pink pill and tell them that's the latest thing, and that you're not very intelligent if you don't go out and get some right now. You won't be on the cutting edge of what's happening, because black people always want to know what's happening, because we're always looking for something new, because we're so desperate and for something different to happen from what has happened. So the white supremacists always has something new for us, but it's always destructive. I don't care how it looks on the surface. They don't hand out things. They don't come and knock on your door to give you something, unless, without you, if you're really thinking, you should be saying, uh-oh, what are they up to now? They're coming to me. Usually, if they're coming to me, they're giving me something that really is not going to help me do anything constructive. If it's anything constructive, I have to run them down, trying to find them to help me do anything constructive. And when they see me coming, they run from me. But when they come and knock on your door and say, I have something for you people, just for you people, that's just wonderful, and you need to take it, always jump back. Don't jump forward.
Mm-hmm.
Jump back and take a look at it and say, wait a minute, what is this? And if I buy into it, what's going to be the result? What is this you say you are doing for me? Just like they did in the ancient days when they encountered people that they call redskins or Indians or original people of the Western Hemisphere. They said, here, Chief, I have some water here for you, and it's not like the water you're used to. This is water with fire in it. You do understand fire, don't you, Chief? Don't you like fire? You use fire to do a lot of your chores. So I have some fire in the water. Take a swig. And to let you know that I'm not trying to trick you, again, I'm going to take a swig. And that's one thing you really have to watch for. The skilled white supremacists, the refined white supremacists, will always do a little bit and sometimes a lot of what they're trying to get you to do. Whether it's a tattoo, or whether it's a swig of whiskey, or whether it's a new drug that's going to destroy you in the end. But they know how to go about doing it in such a way that you wind up being more devastated than them. Now, any person who's tried to seduce somebody, say, with alcohol, knows the old trick of sitting in the booth, in the bar, and this person that has ill intent is trying to seduce the female. What will he do? He'll say, oh, you don't know about this new type of vodka. Oh, this is wonderful. And you'll feel good. And it won't harm you. And to show you that you should take it, because I'm doing you a favor, I'm letting you drink out of my bottle. I'll pour it into your glass. And I will take some myself. But you know the old trick. He takes a little bit, or he might take a lot. And he'll drink it. Then he'll pay you, give you a little bit or a lot. But then little by little, he's taking less and less. And more, you're getting drunker and drunker. But he stopped getting drunk an hour ago. He's a little bit woozy, but he's still in control. That's the key. Who's in control after it's all over? And it's the same way with the drugs. It's the same way even with educational systems.
Mm-hmm.
The white supremacy will tell you something in a classroom that's absolutely true. But then he'll mix in something that's totally false. But by then, you are all going for the truth. You have to pick out. You really have to pick it, just like picking out the poison from anything. You have to sort it out. And that really takes a little doing. You have to be alert that the person is really doing that, because they'll give you a little bit of something constructive, and then they'll little by little put in a whole lot that's non-constructive. And the next thing you know, that's how they maintain domination and control of their mistreatment system.
Now,
because racism is all about mistreatment.
Right. Now, once we know or call it out, Mr. Fuller, what's the next step you do? Once you call this thing out and say, okay, here's what it is, because a lot of people have done that. But then there has to be much more to it than that. And we've got about 3 minutes left. What is the next step we have to take?
That's all you can do at this time, because the white supremacists, and you just have to keep doing it. You have to be persistent, like the ant. You just have to keep saying it, just like we're saying it now. Is this constructive? What's going to be the result of you taking this new poison that's out here now? What's going to be the ultimate result? Are you going to improve? Is your entire existence? Are you going to have more money and be able to do things in a much more efficient manner? And is everybody going to prosper as a result of this in a constructive manner? Or is this going to be destructive? And you're going to become more dependent on nonsense and be chasing after more and more nonsense and agonizing over it, and probably wind up being dead earlier than you should, or being locked up, or being, just thrown to the side of the road and just be a piece of junk, which is what they call the stuff. They call it junk. It's chemicals, cocaine and marijuana and all like that. They call it junk. They call it junk. And then we take it and we look and act like junk. Walk down the street and let's take a look at black people. Sometimes just walking down the street. We look like junk piles sometimes. And it looks like we just go and try to make ourselves look even junkier, rather than something that's vibrant, something that's growing, an organism that seems to have some constructive purpose. We just look like something that's getting ready to head for the trash heap. And we deliberately do this. Just a walking junkyard. You can see the tombstones in our eyes, so to speak. And the white supremacists are behind it. That's all we can do, is just keep pointing it out. Because we are allowing it to happen, and it doesn't have to happen. All we got to do is just say, no, I'm not doing anything, ever, unless you can show me that it has constructive results. I don't care if you're white or non-white. If you come to me with something, make a proposal to me or give me something, I'm going to say, is this constructive or not? If you say something to me, I'll ask that. Wait a minute, is this conversation going to be constructive? Or is it going to be non-constructive? There's no such thing as in between. Because if it's going to be non-constructive, I don't have time for non-constructive conversation. I don't have anything against you. I'm not mad at you. But I'm not going to continue this non-constructive conversation.
Mr. Fuller, how can we get your two works again?
You can just punch into your computer to wordsproducejustice.com. And what you come up on your screen is a brief description of the basic book and a word guide. Words are very important.
Okay.
And how to order.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Always. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
You got the power. Radio. the way it should be heard.